Hi, Dr. Kalpit. It's a great pleasure to have you here in this platform, Thought Leadership, and you have made time on this Saturday morning. So, very grateful for this opportunity to host you. So, let me introduce Dr. Kalpit first. So, Dr. Kalpit Desai is an entrepreneur, AI ML strategist, and thought leader, having helped more than a dozen organizations realize the potential of AI. With over 15 years of experience in the industry, Dr. Kalpit has built AI powered products and solutions for a broad range of domains, including healthcare, energy, manufacturing, defense, retail, automotive, etc. Dr. Kalpit has experience in leading teams of data scientists often across multiple time zone or cultures, and with complete constraints of time, resources, quality in settings ranging from 5 people startups to 400K people MNCs. He received his engineering from LDCE Gujarat, MS 2004, and PhD 2006 from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, USA. With a focus on machine learning for healthcare, he has several patents and peer reviewed publications in international journals and conferences to his credit. He is also a member of the Startup and Technology Committee at SCAHO and an active participant in various forums in and around AI and ML. Driven by passion for building a better tomorrow using data and AI, Dr. Kalpit founded DataCulp in 2018, where he has built Palin, a unique platform that automates protocol training and compliance across numerous use cases, including hand wash, PP warning, wearing a fire drill, etc. So, a nice welcome to Dr. Kalpit, and our viewers will be very much interested to learn from your experience because protocol compliance is a new thing in the in this healthcare industry. So why don't you start? What motivated you to take up this protocol compliance, and then we will go around the use cases.
Sure, Mr. First of all, thanks a lot for hosting me. It's my pleasure to share my thoughts around this upcoming industry and upcoming application of AI for protocol or process training as well as compliance. So let me share why how we from DataCulp started thinking about this is we saw this was early in the phase of COVID, when we saw that healthcare workers, which are actually frontline warriors in the fight against COVID, and we saw that they themselves expose themselves to the microbes and viruses and so on, and there is no at that time it was very clear that hand hygiene can spread can stop the spread of this pathogen, but
Mhm.
there was no system which can train people or even tell them how well their hand hygiene is. And then we started looking deeper at it. We realized that uh, first of all, this hand wash compliance or non-compliance of hand wash is a known issue way before COVID. And then when we started digging up, we saw that it's not only hand wash, not even only healthcare. There are multiple such scenarios, such opportunities for making the protocol or process compliance and training much better by driving the power of AI, data and AI. And let me elaborate a bit when I say that. Why is the protocol, for example, in the hand wash, why is the protocol compliance so low? That is because people do not get feedback. When I wash my hands, I may be looking at, let's say I'm a doctor, I'm washing my hands. I have a poster of how I'm supposed to wash my hands in front of the wash basin, but am I really following that poster? Nobody is there to tell me, right? It is very difficult to manually audit the compliance. It's tedious. It requires resources, and then I may be going through the training when I join an organization or a hospital, and that training will teach me in a week, how to wash my hands. But over the next few weeks, it will all evaporate, and I'll be, and there is no system to tell me how I am doing, right? So that was that's what we realized as the main main gap in the market where we believe, and we have now shown over past 2 years that AI has really matured to fill that gap, and that's the opportunity that we saw, and that's where the germination of Vajra Hands, our first product, and also the platform Palan came. So yes, that's the background.
Want to highlight some of the use cases, means how it shaped like AI being used, what kind of machine learning, how did you plug in AI in this protocol compliance training? Very
Right,
interesting.
right. Yes, yes. So AI last 5 to 10 years, some branches of AI has have really turned a page, and computer vision and natural language processing are two of those branches, right? So we are essentially using the power of computer vision and power of other sensor data, time series type of data, to do couple of things. One, we can give offline feedback, so people can upload their data, upload their video and sensor data to our cloud, and we process that data in the backend and give you a report that if let's in case of hand wash, we can if we, they just upload the video, and we tell them, you missed this step number two, which has this motion of finger. Your duration was not sufficient. It was 20 seconds, whereas in your particular protocol, it is at least minimum 30 seconds is necessary. These are the examples that we can give. How do we do that? Is we have a edge compute device which sits on the wash basin. It has a camera attached to it. That camera looks down at the wash basin, and whenever there is activity on the wash basin, the camera records that.
Mhm.
Now, on that point, there are two options that we have. One, we can put a accelerated compute within that edge device, and then we process that camera stream live while the person is washing their hands. And when we do that, we are able to on a display that is on the device. We are also able to show them, this is how you are performing. As you do one step, you get a green tick. If you miss that step, you get a red cross. At the end, you get a score, and
There is
then on
a
that
there is a board, where display board which is associated. Yeah.
there is a LCD screen on the device along with the camera,
Hmm.
which gives you that feedback. So when there is no, so this is one option. This is what we call real time feedback, which is very very powerful for training because you are getting immediate feedback, and when you get immediate contextual feedback, that's how you build habits, right?
Hmm.
So then what we have seen is that when a person is washing hands on a basin on which our device Vajra Hands is installed, they within a few weeks they form habits, and then those habits retain even when they are washing their hands at a basin where this real time feedback is not activated. So that is very powerful because now we know that it is building habits, right?
Hmm.
So this is one case. The other application is we do not have the powerful edge computing device. We have uh, normal standard compute, and then we collect the data, we collect the video. That compute then talks to our cloud servers, and we process the data on cloud and then send it back to a dashboard, which for example a hospital or manufacturing plant, pharmaceutical manufacturing plant can access, and they can see, who how good is the compliance at particular basin. So that is the second option. The third option is we can also add person identification. So RFID based identity or barcode based identity. Those two we can do. There are also other options, face recognition and so on, but they have privacy issues and so on. So we are not using them right now. But with this identity, now we can also pinpoint who needs a specific training, who needs a targeted training for which compliance, which protocol, right? So all these three possibilities are available right now. And this is all I talked about is purely hand washing protocol, but the system architecture and the power of AI in data, it is applicable to multiple other use cases. So I'll talk also about, let's say, we are talking to an automotive client, and as of today when they pack airbags in a car, they have to follow a certain sequence of steps so that the airbag is folded into 10 folds. If you
Mm-hmm.
miss even one of the folds in the 10 folds, then when there is accident, the airbag may not deploy as quickly as it
Ah,
needs to be.
ah,
But that,
yeah.
so that pressure, to generate that pressure, the 10 fold is necessary. Right now, there is no easy way to check whether the person, because these are technicians, right? Yes, they are skilled in that domain, but there is no way. There is always room for human error, and there is no easy way to find out if it is when a person is packing it, is it as it folded in 10 folds. Using very similar application with camera and display, we can uh, we can have all three: RTF, real time feedback we can give compliance reports, and we can also identify who was the person who needs training for packing, if somebody is a frequent offender, for example, right?
Yeah,
Like
very
when
new thing, very niche and new thing of technology, right?
Right. So this is what we also realized that yes, AI has been used or is now a buzzword among many verticals and many applications. This was one of the niche which we realized that it's not yet served by AI, at least not yet, not fully served. There are other companies. We are not the first one to figure this out, that there is this niche. There are companies, for example, who have built solutions to check electronic board assembly. So sometime in many places, in many companies, those electronics boards, you have to manually put chips on top of them, and only when you put the chips, then the board is complete. Yes, you can test it electronically, but that will take another machinery, another assembly, and another person. So while somebody is putting chips, if you have cameras on top, you can directly say whether that is being
Mhm.
uh, if the board is assembled properly or not. So there are a few companies who are in the market with doing similar stuff as protocol process compliance and so on. But what we have realized, which is, I think, it's still in early stages to we believe this very deeply, but it is that understanding is not yet mainstream in the market, is that this is not about solving one use case at a time, right? We want to use the power of AI and data to create a platform so that that platform can very efficiently support multiple use cases, and the
So
hand washing
multiple use
be one.
cases in different places. So one of our viewers are telling that monitoring of airbag folding, very nice example of AI CV use case.
Hmm.
Really, I also have no idea about this protocol compliance. It's really a niche thing. Rajesh C. Reddy. Thanks, Rajesh. And another question, Vishwas is asking, I am not fully understanding the question. How are modern data governance warehouse techniques are evolving? Data governance warehouse. So, do you think the compliance parts are also getting used in warehouses, and we need some kind of governance for those? How do you track where we are failing, how the model is evolving? I think that is the governance part of it.
Right. That definitely. So yes, governance. I'm not sure if I understood the question. Actually, it is
But
worded differently, but I believe the question is asking: is there a compliance in warehouse? And I assume that this is talking about, no, it is talking about data warehouse.
Mhm.
Data warehouse compliance. Actually, I don't know if it is. Only compliance I can think of there is the privacy compliance. And yes, the privacy compliance is now picking up steam, especially after multiple public debacles of big companies. So uh, the privacy compliance in data warehouses, in applications on mobile devices, even on computers, browsers, everything is picking up. You see, GDPR is already rolled out. India is poised to roll out PDP, personal data privacy bill, and like that, more and more such regulations are going to come up. There is definitely a role. There is a niche. There are some niche areas in privacy compliance where AI can play a role, but a bulk of it, I believe, is purely figuring out what is the right data management policies and so on. AI can play a role, for example, in detecting detecting patterns which indicate privacy privacy compromise, for example. From access patterns to a given database or to a given tool, there are use cases where you can model, if this is the pattern, then this is very odd pattern. This looks like, somebody's trying to breach into somebody's privacy. So that kind of modeling is, somewhere between academia and industry. It's somewhere in that phase, but mostly it is about data management policies.
Yeah, so another Rajesh again asks, right, from technology adaptations, these examples like hand wash monitoring the manufacturing process is appreciated. Any instances where end users have resistance for adoption? Means you must be facing some resistance where people may not be easily ready to adopt the my cameras installation.
Right. So it's a very good question, and we also had the same question when we built the hand wash compliance device ourselves. But what we observed is, so our first customer there was hospital, naturally, and this was installed in ICU of hospital. And what we observed was that people were actually quite enthusiastic about the device once they understood what the device was about. If we had just put the device and come back, I think it would have met a lot of resistance because people do not understand this technology. And once they understood, because we are so showing, we are very transparent about what camera can see. Camera cannot see your face, for example. Camera is only looking at the wash basin. It is only looking at your motion patterns. They were quite enthusiastic, and they were actually trying to make sure that their hands are visible when they wash camera, then when their hands are visible in the camera when they are washing. The camera is turned on, the device is performing properly. They wanted to take care of all of that. They were quite enthusiastic. Now, there are also other use cases, for example. So it depends, and when you say end user resistance, what does it mean, right? Who is the end user? For example, I'll give you one more example of protocol compliance. This is in retail merchandise placement. So let's think of, so this is brick and mortar physical retail. Let's think of a physical retail that has 400 stores across India. Their merchandise placement is very strongly governed from the headquarters, and all the stores have to follow that particular protocol. So today, how do they do it? There is a store manager. He has to walk around store a couple of times a day, make sure that everything is in place. And because it's a manual process, it is very likely that he will miss a few things. And if that manager is absent or is not aligned in terms of incentives, then even bigger problem, right? You will not get the right placement of the merchandise in the store. And these placements are driven by mathematical models to optimize their business KPIs. So it is very important that this placement of merchandise, not only merchandise but also their posters on the outside wall of the store and their mannequins, everything is very tightly optimized in the physical detail. So if any deviation from that has direct impact on the revenue. As a result, uh, now in this case, there is a use case for, they already have CCTV cameras. All the retail malls have CCTV cameras. Using CCTV camera footage, we can tell whether the placement of the merchandise is compliant or not. Now, if you think of the end user as a customer is very happy. If the end user is the store manager, he is also happy. If the end user is the headquarters, that is also happy. But if the end user is the staff, which is placing the merchandise, now they are on the spot. There is not now technology who is putting that on the spot. So then there is some resistance which happens in those scenarios. So yes, the compliance has both edges, right? There will always be some part of the ecosystem which will resist, and there is always other part which
Quick
actually
add-on.
benefit. The hope is that we choose those use cases where the part which is gaining benefit is the majority, and is the fair benefit, and the part which is resisting, it's resisting because not because of any genuine reason, but because of lack of discipline and so on.
Yeah, so
So
I
yeah.
have a question for when we do this process compliance and training, right? Are we looking at only privacy, fairness, all those edges of responsible, the use cases for responsible AI, or we are also looking at how the feedback you are talking about, right? If there is something wrong, then the feedback comes, and do we incorporate that data into the training process? Means how that internally works. Is it very like privacy based training, or is it just plain training? How do we adjust all these factors together?
Sure. So in the protocol compliance or process compliance and training, it is very rare that at the time of it is very rare that in order to build the technology, in order to build the AI models, you need to gather the private data. Most of the times you are gathering data which is does not contain any PII. Um, but at the for when you want to deploy this, many use cases, for example, even healthcare, there are customers who tell us that we want to know who is washing the hands. You have to identify who is washing hands, and then we don't build models, we don't build AI for that. We buy off the shelf RFID or barcode scanners. We attach them with our device, and we that becomes an additional feature for them. So
Okay.
from the protocol compliance, we have not seen privacy being a hindrance in a way.
Hindrance, yeah. So Rajesh, I can ask another question. Has this been thought of? Hand wash sanitization protocols being in cab aggregators, Ola, Uber?
We have not approached them, but yeah, can be. So here the currently the technology is at a stage where these systems are they are economically viable for those premises and for those clients where hand hygiene is very, very critical. So hospitals, pharmaceutical manufacturing plants, hotel kitchens, food processing plants, and sometimes even schools, where they are all about building habits and training, right? But if we can find a way to make it viable, for example, let's say for Ola Uber aggregators, or even for many services, where many public space services, that would be great. We haven't yet matured at a level where it is scalable to that masses.
And maybe as he's saying, maybe a few days down the line, we will see in public transportation facilities, metro bus, and
Right.
that definite use case for this protocol compliance.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah, and so Dr. Kalpit, what is so hard in the driving the compliance for basic protocols in the healthcare industry? Why is it so hard?
Um, so I think we touched upon it briefly
Okay.
earlier.
Uh-huh. Yeah, the pros and cons. Yeah.
Right. The main. So let me give some context. Right. Let's take this example of hand wash compliance only. Right? Just to illustrate the point better. So World Health Organization (WHO), CDC, both of these have papers way back 2000 to 2005 in that range, which prove that the average compliance, even in developed countries like US, even among healthcare workers, was less than 50%. This is about hand wash compliance. And this while knowing that healthcare acquired infection is a growing problem, antimicrobial resistance (AMR) is a growing problem. Both of these are known worldwide, and even then, uh, even after lots of campaigns putting billions of dollars in improving the compliance over past 15 years, pre-COVID the compliance levels were still 50%. In this industries. So we really, this is where what puzzled us at the very beginning. That, why? These are very reasonable people, right? Healthcare workers, they are smart, they are sufficiently disciplined. Why the compliance is lacking, right? What we discovered is, first of all, there is no system that tells right now that tells them how well they are washing their hands. So many people were under the impression that they are actually washing their hands, but when that WHO or CDC do a systematic audit, they find out that no, they have missed a couple of patterns. So WHO is a 9-step protocol. If you miss 2 steps out of it, your hands are not clean enough, right? So because there is no peer feedback, people forget. And they all of these people are trained, right? These are healthcare workers. They went through sufficient training, not only once, probably multiple times during their career, for how to wash hands, and they have conspicuous posters right in front of the wash basin that these are the 9 steps, how you should wash your hands. But even then the compliance remain between 40 to 50%. So that is because there is no feedback, people tend to forget. That, I think, is one of the primary root cause for lack of compliance. Second thing is, because it is very tedious to measure the compliance or non-compliance events. You have to, for example, hand wash, you have to have another person who is standing next to the person washing hands, and that person has to audit whether the hand wash being performed is correctly done or not. And that this is actually the process that most of the hospital today have. The best that you can hope for is that the person washing hands does not know that the person standing next to him is the auditor. That too, these are all colleagues, so to have that separation is not practical, right? So at most you can, let's assume that that person does not know, so it is why he or she is watching washing her hands, naturally, how they wash their hands without knowing that they are being watched, right? uh, Even then, these audits they have to be spot audits. You cannot do them 24/7. And because they are spot audits, there is no there is no way to measure that, measure or identify frequent offenders, or even frequent patterns of mistakes. As a result, there is no incentive to staff compliance. For staff, there is no incentive for compliance or penalty for non-compliance, right? So this is another major reason. It's very difficult to measure, and as a result, the incentive system doesn't exist. And the last one is, most of these places, there is a high churn of people, and people move across functions also. So we are talking to a hospital. They said that 40% is roughly our churn year to year. 40% of the employees,
They are moving away from this protocol compliance, means they are not using the
yeah, so they are changing role in a way. Either they are changing organization or they are changing roles also, where
roles.
the role does not require them to comply with the protocol, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So if 40%, if let's say in a year 40% of the staff is new, now 40% might be example of their hospital. It may be between 20 to 40%, roughly. But if that is the percentage of new employees that are joining your workforce, how many trainings would you conduct in a year to make sure that they are washing their hands? And how often do you have to conduct the training so that their effect does not wear out, right? So the training itself is a big issue, because training itself is not practical, is expensive. You have to conduct it frequently. It will take everybody's time. You have to put everybody in the same room and then train them. Let's say if you are doing 1 day training every quarter, that is 1 day of the entire staff every quarter, right? So it becomes expensive. So I think these three are the main practical on ground challenges on why, although they understand compliance is very, very important, it is difficult to drive high rate of compliance. So this
Okay.
is where AI fills the gap. With AI, we can do continuous training. Camera does not get tired. His computing does not get tired. So you can do continuous training. Whenever somebody is washing hands at that basin, they will see the feedback. Uh, if the premises wants, the compliance can be monitored and also attributed to the identity of the person. So
Person.
now you have the entire system for personalized incentives and
To
personalized
draw,
training.
yeah, to draw more people who can abide to these compliances.
Exactly,
But
exactly.
then I think it will be a slow but maybe a larger adoption in hotels, transport facilities, as Rajesh was also talking about, airport,
Right,
all public places, right? All public places some
right,
day or other will
right.
have this adoption. So,
That's
is this the only challenge that you face? That is the churning of customers, or did you the people who are using it, or did you face any other challenge also? And how did you overcome the challenges?
Oh, challenges. Okay, so there are two buckets here in challenges. One is technical, technical challenges that we have to overcome, and I'll briefly touch upon that also. But most important for us was the business challenges that we have to overcome, and we are still working on that journey. So let me talk about technical challenges first. See, now we have spoken about how real-time feedback is important, right? Without real-time feedback, you cannot drive training. You cannot drive, most of the time, you cannot even drive compliance, right? Um, if we need real-time feedback, that pretty much means across the globe that you will have to deploy these algorithms on the basin right there, where right next to the camera. You cannot send this data to cloud, do the processing, and send the results back to the display in time, so that person can feel that yes, I am getting feedback while I'm washing my hands.
The
That is
latency,
not. Yes, the
that is
latency is very high, and the bandwidth, the internet bandwidth is not reliable, to do this real time feedback. So now we when we have to deploy this on edge, then we have to get into managing these devices, and we have to manage these devices remotely, because we as a startup will not have manpower to put one person on each site, on each client site, to manage the devices there. So for this, we actually had to invest a lot in terms of engineering infrastructure, so that we can remotely monitor how the hardware is performing, and remotely also upgrade the software. And this took months of investment from our side. So this was the main technical challenge, making it work in the real time fashion. And we are happy that now we have installed it at 7 hospitals, and they are now also talking about how can we renew. So it's been it's been already a year. They have seen the benefit of this. We are going to publish a paper with that, and now they are going to renew it for another year. So it's very reassuring that we have solved the problem in a way where we have brought value to the customer. So this was the technical challenge. Well, now let me talk about business challenges, right? So nobody in the team so far has had a sales background. Myself, I am hardcore techie. 15 years with data and AI, data AI algorithm. That's all I know about technology, right? And I don't know anything about business. So our first challenge was to learn sales, and what we realized that it's not only about how do you sell to a given person, but the bigger battle is in figuring out whom should you sell to, who is the target
customer.
customer, who will your our device, whose problem is it going to solve? It's not the problem of the nurse, it's not the problem of healthcare, hospital admin. Whose problem is it going to solve, right? So that was to figuring that out was a great journey. A lot of lessons learned along the way, uh, and the outcome is that the person who is likely to pay the right price for the product is the person for whom you are solving that problem, right? It, it can't, this kind of technology, that it requires heavy computing hardware. Real-time feedback we talked about, right, requires heavy computing hardware, requires investment in terms of development of algorithms. So there is no easy way of reducing the cost of manufacturing down. So you have to sell to the right people who can appreciate the price point at which you need to sell. That was the first lesson that we, first challenge for us to, overcome. We have overcome it partially. Over next 4 months, I think we'll see the results of our strategy now. And lastly, from the business side, again the challenge rooted from the fact that, for training and for real time feedback, we needed to have this compute directly on the edge, which meant, it was challenging to provide manufacturing on-site support as well as maintenance of the devices for extended periods, 1 year, 2 years, and so on, while keeping the costs low. So that was another challenge, and that also required multiple iterations in terms of design, in terms of what is the how we communicate to the customer, so that they understand how to operate the device, and they get the maximum benefit out of it without us going there on site and training them individually. So yeah, these were the primary business challenges.
Yeah. And so, what do you recommend? Means you have seen multiple deployments, your experiences. Do you recommend only edge deployment or a hybrid with along with cloud, or also maybe for computing also? I'm not sure in this area.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, it's interesting, and honestly, our opinions on this front has also evolved over last 3 years. When we started out, we believed that, and there is also still some truth to that, but we believe that edge computing, solving this on the edge, is the right way to go, because you can give real time feedback. The client does not need to send you any data to your cloud, so client privacy is not a problem. Client data privacy is not an issue. um, and that's how we started. But then we learned the challenges we just spoke about managing the edge computing devices and while keeping the cost low. So now, if I have to answer this at this point, it is very clear that all three modalities, when we look at the broader umbrella of protocol compliance, all three modalities have their space in the market. When you want to do training, when you want to deliver continuous training, yes, real time feedback is needed. But real time feedback also does not mean that you have to put a device on each basin or each machine. If you are talking about manufacturing plant, what we can do is we can just put a camera at the edge, and then we put a on-premise computer. The camera talks to the on-premise computer, does not go to cloud, so latency is solved, privacy issue is solved, and you can still give real-time feedback. So that is possible. So edge and on-premise plus edge, both of these are a possibility. They have a good place. Cloud alone is also quite possible, where we don't even sell any hardware. Let's take an example. Let's take a slightly different example. This is not in a way protocol compliance, but it bears very much similarity. Let's talk about yoga postures compliance or sports maneuver training, right? Let's say let's take the example of three pointer basketball three pointer. Now, based on where you are on the court, where the other players are on the court, there are certain maneuvers that you can take to make sure that you hit the basket, right? If somebody uploads a video of that, you can have your front record while you take that maneuver, and then you can upload the video. The AI can analyze and recommend you that your hand was not fully high, or you did not move in the certain fashion, which would have been better for hitting the basket. So there, this is example where there is no hardware necessary on the edge. You just need to send the video to the cloud, and AI will analyze and give you the feedback. Likewise, the example of product merchandise placement in retail, similar example. They already have CCTV. We don't have to sell any new hardware. They just send us the video, and only on cloud we can give them the compliance report directly. And then there are, so these are the both of these extremes, and then there are opportunities in between also, where we have a small or lightweight computer on the edge, which does some basic pre-processing tasks, and then talks to the cloud, where cloud is actually where the AI processing happens. And the use case is such that the latency of the cloud from the edge is not really a bottleneck. So all these three modalities exist in the market.
Yeah, that's great. That's really a new insight. I have not been that much into this space. Again, Rajesh asked that other than technical business related challenges, did you face any challenges from institutional side?
So institutional side, not really. So and that may be because most of the customers that we have approached so far are, in healthcare and pharma space, somewhat also in industry, even hotel space. But most of the time, the institutes, these premises know that hand hygiene is a problem, and if somebody can provide them a solution, then they are willing to, at least explore it. Now we have to work out, and we have to meet their we have to work out the economics, which we are still working out. We are still on the journey. But other than that, from the institution, there was no, we never felt that we are being held back because of the bureaucracy or institutional politics, or those issues. Um, Whenever we were talking to them, the response was quite positive. That yes, we know that this is a problem. What you are building looks like a very similar solution, very very exciting solution. Let's explore. Let's try it out. Let's see what happens. And that's how we actually got this paid clients for us hospitals also.
Okay, nice, nice. So, how do you see that AI evolving in this space, like protocol compliance over 3 to 5 years, or maybe?
Right. So there are multiple trends which are going to converge very soon, probably next 3 years, if not sooner. One is 4G, sorry, 5G is going to become mainstream, hopefully in next 3 years. Um, there is So right now the computer vision as a field, and I believe AI in general, is also a mix of hype and reality. And I think now the market is waking up, and market itself is now cutting down the hype. So we'll see more and more mature, robust, industry grade practical AI systems. Um, at the same time, the third trend is more around, which is actually the most important trend. It is more around the raised uh, the raised awareness of protocol compliance. Most of us, I don't believe, most of the general public would have washed their hands with 9-step protocol ever before COVID.
Mhm.
Only at the time of COVID, we started looking at those methods, and at least there was some awareness, right? Like that now, because of variety of reasons, the protocol compliance is becoming more and more important across the board. And it's not only for, of course, it is for hygiene and safety of everybody, but there are also very, very very real monetary driven reasons also. For example, the merchandise placement protocol, right? And now, there is a general awareness that while AI has a hype, people, not in the context of protocol compliance, but people know also about AI. There is more awareness about AI, right? What AI can do, and sometimes that is still hyped up, but it is still there, right? So this trends converging. What that means, I believe, is that you will see many such use cases. I would not be surprised that if um, uh, if over next 3 to 5 years, if there are hundreds of use cases in the context of um, protocol slash process training and compliance addressed by AI, some form of AI. It may not always be, video. It will be, I believe, it will be a mixture of video plus sensors. It could be audio also. But I see this as the real possibility that protocol training and compliance will become one of the one of the niche applications of AI, which will see much broad-based adoption across multiple verticals.
So
Right now,
Pranjal, go ahead, go ahead. Sorry, sir. Finish.
so right now we have only, I think, solved one use case from our side. We have solved one use case, which is also only in the healthcare industry. This is evidently, this is only scratching the surface. I think there is a lot that we can leverage here. There is a lot that we can solve using AI.
Yeah, so Pranjali Joshi asked, right, can this be used for all sectors in market? Do you think any, I think you have talked about like healthcare, retail, but
Right.
any other sector you think there is specific sector, anything where it cannot be used or can be used? Anything you want to add?
Um, all sectors or all use cases is probably difficult to say, but this can be, so protocol compliance can be solved by AI where the problem has this characteristics, right? That yes, there is a protocol. When we say a protocol, what is it? It's a manual process that somebody has to go through. So hand wash is a manual process. Those 7 steps that you have to go through. Assembling of the airbag is another manual process. So it should be a manual process. The compliance of that process has impact on the business, direct impact on the business, and it is right now very difficult to monitor the compliance. The monitoring of the compliance is also right now manual. If that is manual, then it is a big cost for the organization, right? So these are the three primary things, and then lastly, the manual process that is being done should be in some form be measured. We should be able to measure or observe that process through camera or other sensors. As long as these four elements exist, I think that protocol compliance can be solved by AI if it is not solved already.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for your answer. So, how do you see that foresee the challenges which are up in scaling the compliance platform? Because we have talked about age, we have talked about cloud, so some of the things are already been taken care of. But do you want to mention any other tools or technologies that can be used to make it more scalable?
Sure. Tools, off-the-shelf tools right now, I don't know if they are built for this particular use case, because this particular line of application itself is quite new in the market. But uh, the main two challenges in scaling this up would be one on the, well, again we'll go back to the same two bifurcation of the challenges. One is technology challenges, another is business challenges, right? So both of these bifurcations, what we realize that is this is a long tail of use cases. It is not to deliver the value, you have to serve a large part of the tail, right? It does not look like there are two use cases. If you solve, you are solving protocol compliance in majority, right? It's there are many use cases, and as a result, that the market is both fragmented. It's not one person or one kind of business that you can go and talk to and solve this. And it's the value is divided across these hundreds of use cases, right? So first of all, how do you build and engineer the technology so that you can serve these use cases without incurring a lot of development cost or maintenance cost of the technology? That is the first challenge that we that we need to solve. And secondly, uh, assume that you have built the technology now, or assume that you have solved that technology development problem. How do you solve the business challenge? How do you, for each of these use cases, how do you figure out whom to sell? Whose problem is it really? Who will pay for solving this problem? Because again, their market is fragmented, right? How do you reach out to those customers? What kind of narrative you design, so that that is that is addressing problem of a, a sizable group in the market, because you cannot design a narrative for each individual person. That will never scale, right? So these are the two challenges which I see for scaling the adoption of AI for solving protocol compliance and training.
That makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah. So we have to handle the technology, the people challenges, the business challenges, and then we can think of. But I have person means based on my understanding of clouds. Do you think that there are because of the tool cost, some services if we use for this age or the cloud, the native cloud providers, AWS or Azure or Google, they provide any of this particular services is costly, or is it should we should think of that to use those protocol related or the device related services minimal and have our own in-house capabilities as well.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, and the answer to that will depend from use case to use case and from customer to customer. Uh, what would be, so some of the dimensions to answer that would be, what is the price of privacy that that organization puts on them. If they really want, if they put a high price for privacy, they'll pay for on premises installation, and we can put servers on premises, right? And then the cost is either rental cost or one time cost, but it is not the exorbitant cloud cost that they have to incur. On the other hand, what if the value that this compliance is delivering is sufficiently high, then that particular slice of market will not mind paying an attractive multiple of our cloud operation cost to serve this compliance services. So it depends both ways. Right now, what we have seen is we are already seeing, even for this one use case, we are already seeing that the market, different segments of the market are asking for different type of configurations for deployment. Some are asking for edge, some are fine completely with edge, some are asking for edge plus on premises server, and some are asking edge plus cloud directly, and they have their own cloud sometimes. So then we don't bear the cost; they are bearing the cost. We only deploy on the cloud. So those
Mm.
kind of ecosystems, I believe that as more and more use cases come up, and as we try addressing them, some stability in terms of what is the right deployment structure, at least at a vertical level, will emerge. But right now, it is not very clear. Are the cost prohibitive for this use case? What do you do with privacy?
My
Yes, there are
budget.
some. Yeah.
Yeah. And you have already talked about 5G and IoT is going to impact the next generation compliance industry, right? Protocol compliance industry, training
Right.
with them. So, anything we would like to add on that section?
Um, so 5G is going to be a very interesting game. It's I think if when we speak to potential customers, or even business domain experts across multiple verticals, what we are seeing is and this is a bit not very intuitive, but what we are seeing is the market opinion is divided around 5G. Some people believe that 5G will drive adoption of edge AI much larger than adoption of cloud AI, and other people say exactly the opposite. And the reason, the two sides of argument here is, with 5G you will have more and more edge devices sending data to the cloud with high enough bandwidth, so that you don't have enough latency. So your latency is limited, and you can do computation on the cloud. and still serve the real-time feedback use cases because 5G has the high bandwidth. The other side of the argument is yes, 5G has high bandwidth, but that also means that there will be many customers or many consumers of the 5G band who are sending data through it, and as a result, um, to somebody who is looking for real-time feedback, on an average, the latency may be within the acceptable limits, but every once in a while, you will hit bottlenecks where the bottlenecks is very short and mild enough for others, but for you, for real-time feedback, the bottleneck is significant, and as a result, you would want to deploy these things on edge, and instead have edge talk to the cloud efficiently asynchronously instead of doing real-time feedback using 5G. So I think that's we'll see how that plays out. It's very difficult to predict right now. I believe that it is likely that 5G will actually drive the right balance between edge and cloud. It will help us drive that right balance. I don't think it is going to be, edge is going to grow and cloud is not going to grow, or cloud is going to grow and edge is not going to grow. I think it both will grow together because of 5G by
Okay.
multiple. That's what I believe will happen.
Yeah, and one last question from my side is since we have talked age, 5G, everything, right? IoT, everything. I'm
Mhm.
quite interested if you have any thoughts or if you have any vision or comments on AR, VR. That's also increasing at a rapid pace. So, do you think that protocol compliance will be driven or any way be impacted by AR, VR?
Right, right. So I'm first of all, I'm not an expert in area. I myself, I think I'm just learning about it. But I see, I see. Now let's introduce one more vertical in our conversation. This is defense technology.
Yeah.
So defense, they play, they invest heavily in tools for simulation. So these are flight simulations, combat simulations on the ground, including all three types of services: air, navy, and military. And for those simulation, AR VR is the core technology. Now in the combat, there are also very well defined protocols that people have to comply to. So now on top of what person is on top of the utility of AR VR, there is still that there is definitely a room for protocol compliance which can be addressed by AI on top of what is being already. So AR VR is going to simulate those scenarios, and
Scenarios.
then uh, real army, air force people, and navy people, they are supposed to then work in that simulated environment and win the battle which is simulated. Now when they are working and trying to win the battle, are they following the protocol? Are they following the protocol that they might have been just recently trained? It may be the protocol of operating a given aircraft. That they also have to, every aircraft has a certain characteristics of certain procedures that requires operation, right? Are they operating it correctly, or are they and do they end up operating in a way which is not suitable for that aircraft, and they'll run into aerodynamic crashes, for example, right? So these are actually real simulations which the defense does even today. So there is definitely, it is possible that defense may adopt this technology much before adopt, and they may already have adopted. We don't know yet about it. It may be
Yeah.
secretly already. So,
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. So we are almost at the end. If you if do you any no more questions I can see. If you have anything to add, you can add. Otherwise, we are means really a very insightful session and a very niche technology that you and your startup and your team is working with, and very informative, I must say, because these things we won't get very IoT and age. Who else is working on? Means many small startups who have scaled and trying to work on, and very insightful to know all these things, the details, the challenges, the platforms, and all and whatnot, the scalability. So, do you want to conclude anything by adding anything or any advice to anybody's people, young buddies, data scientists who are looking to have a career like this in this domain?
Sure. Well, no advice as such, but yeah, it was a great pleasure to be on this on this show, and I hope the attendants also learned a bit about what is protocol compliance and how AI can play a role in it. You would certainly want more players on both sides, the consumer as well as builders, because this is not an umbrella that one company can solve entirely. So yeah, just looking forward to the to increase the awareness of this niche in the market, and hopefully what we spoke about today will inspire others to think about, consider this particular niche in the market and try to adopt it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks
Yeah.
a lot for hosting. Pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care. Bye. Happy
Bye.
weekend. Bye.
You too. Thank you.